Greetings, disciples, and welcome to the first in a series of guides and tutorials for Cyberpunk 2077. Now, to kick this series off, we're starting with a fun little guide to making infinite money in the game using an exploit. And what makes this particular exploit great is not only that it can be done immediately when you start the game, as soon as you get into Act 1, don't do it in the prologue because your money resets, but this is also great because it does not involve any sort of super tedious activity like, moving back and forth in front of a vending machine and spamming a button, and you don't need any sort of startup capital to get going. On top of that, you only need one perk for this to actually be to your benefit, and you can get that perk immediately without investing any levels in a skill that you don't have. So for this video today, it's going to be split into two parts. Now the first half is going to be about a 4-minute clip showing you guys exactly from point A to point Z how to take care of this exploit using my method. And the second half of the video is going to show you all the math behind it, what makes it so profitable, and why it is one of the better methods out there. Plus, we're going to talk about some alternative ways to sell your stuff and what other methods there are in case you're at a different point in the game. But of course, you guys can skip out on the video at any time. But anyway, let's get on with the actual glitch. So the way this works is simple. There are only 3 steps, and like I said, it can be done as soon as you are given access to free roam in Chapter 1. Don't forget to pick up the one perk that you need to actually do this exploit, which is in the technical skill tree, and it's called Mechanic. It's available at the very beginning no matter which choices you chose to put your points into. Alright, now, on to step 1. What you need to do is go to a bar and buy all the liquor there. Now the best bar I've found for this is Lizzie's Bar in Southeast Watson. I'm showing you guys how to get there on the screen now. Once you're inside, go ahead and go up to the bartender and buy everything at the counter. Now I did speed this clip up to 2 times speed for you guys' benefit, but you can finish this in about a minute, slightly longer if you're using a controller due to some limitations. Now you can make this whole process faster by skipping the dialogue when you talk to the bartender, and here in a moment when you finish purchasing everything, don't even bother to turn around to look back at the bartender because you can just hit the interact button to sit down again. But before you do that, and once you've purchased everything at the counter, including the alcohol and normal drinks, exit the counter and pause the game, then go down to the skip time button, hit the back arrow, and confirm a 24-hour wait time. This will reset the drink vendor and allow you to purchase everything he owns all over again. Next is step 2, the easy part. Again, make sure you have the mechanic perk in the technical skill tree before you do this. But once you've purchased everything, go into your backpack and sort it by consumables. Now you're going to want to decon all of the drinks you just bought. Now the reason this exploit currently works is because all of these items decon into parts that sell for more than the item is worth itself. You'll notice, especially if you have done this quite a lot of times, that you're very quickly going to start packing in the components on the left side of your screen. And if you have large enough stacks like I do, you'll be getting into the tens of thousands very, very quickly. Keep in mind that not all items will decon, and if you accidentally consume one of these drinks instead of deconning it, then you'll have to consume one of a stack of other drinks in order to be able to continue deconning that stack. Strange bug, but this whole thing is a bug to begin with. For now, leave your medicine alone, but at the end of this video, we're going to talk about how that is an alternate method for doing the same thing. Now finally, we can head on to step 3, selling your products. This can be done in a number of ways, but the fastest is to go to a drop box. The closest drop box is just down the street, only a few steps, and make sure when you get there to tip the nice homeless man because rather ironically he needs money for booze, which is what we've just bought a fuckload of. And hey, maybe he can even start his own empire, just like we're about to. Open up the Dropbox and sort by all items. Next, scroll down to your common and uncommon components and sell as many as you can up to the 20,000 that you are allowed to sell for a Dropbox. And voila, you just made 20 grand. Now, exit out of the Dropbox, go back into your menu, hit skip time, back to 24 hours, and voila, you can sell 20 grand worth of stuff to the Dropbox all over again. Simply repeat this process until you run out of components, because now you know you can always get more. Now after all of this, you're going to end up with about 3 times as much cash as you had before you started buying booze. So, with that in mind, you can always head right back, buy as much as you can all over again, and triple your money again. And that's all there is to it. Now there are also plenty of other methods you can use for this glitch, but this is the one that I have found to be the most lucrative and profitable, as well as the easiest and most accessible. So, in order to prove that, we're going to look at some of the methods that I have been using and some of the ones that other people have been using and compare the numbers instead of just throwing out figures at you guys like I see in every other video that are based on nothing. One alternative to buying products that can be deconned into components worth more than you purchased the item for, that was a mouthful, are med points. Now med points can purchase all of these max stocks and bounce backs. Every single one of these of all different types actually is worth more in their parts than they are for what you purchase in them. This method is good because it allows you to get a lot more blue and purple parts very quickly for cheaper than it would be to purchase them by themselves. However, the amount of profit that you get from one run through the pharmacy, so buying out all of these products, deconning them, and then selling them, is about 3,900 eddies, which is about 3,000 eddies less than you're getting from going back through the process we're doing at the bar. And keep in mind that is per cycle, and if you want to do this here, then you need to move far enough away from him that the conversation ends before you can wait through the day. As you can see, it says I cannot skip time right now because it still considers me in the conversation, so I have to walk all the way back out and all the way back inside before I can skip time again. Now technically you can also do the same thing we did at the bar at a food store. The problem is that a lot of these items don't decon properly, like these fruits don't, these Easy Beef doesn't, and a lot of these places have less options to purchase than the bars do. Plus, we run into the same problem where we need to walk all the way out of the store in order to be able to skip time again. Now, some bars also operate a lot like food stores in that they have a bunch of items that you can't decon, and that is a large part of why I specifically chose Lizzie's bar, that on top of not having to walk outside because you just hit a button to sit back down to go back to the menu. Now, why not vending machines? Why do I hate the very prospect of doing this with vending machines? Because vending machines are actually a lot slower than this method. It took me about 30 seconds to clear out these 4 machines, and yes, there's about a dozen in this plaza I'm in right here. However, in that 30 seconds, I was only able to get less than 60 drinks from all 4 of these machines before they got sold out so you can no longer buy more. This means that I then have to run a relay race to every single one of these, get them sold out, run to the next one, sell it out, or alternatively just take these 4 and then wait, but waiting doesn't even reset them. You know, and waiting is so much faster than actually going in and saving your game and loading it back, which is what you have to do to get these vending machines to reset, so it's definitely not the answer. Now we come to what is possibly the most important part of the video, the math, and you thought you'd never use it. First though, I do want to mention there is another method which is actually a little faster than this one, and by a little I mean kind of a lot, but it is missable completely, and once you're past that part of the game, which it is a good chunk of the way in, you cannot come back and repeat it. So I've not included that in this guide, but we will include it in the calculations to see the difference. Now there are 3 things we need to consider when we're talking about the math, and that is the buy and sell prices of components, the value of items in components, and the amount of profit that you're earning by selling them after purchasing them. Of course, feel free to pause and or take a picture or a screenshot if need be, because especially the prices of components can come in handy when you're trying to figure out whether or not you should scrap your items. However, the real prize from this particular one is the profit per item, which is going to help us determine which courses are the best to take for making money. Now we're going to take into account how much profit is made in a given run. A run being completing one sequence of purchasing items. I did include selling the items in this particular guide because it's going to take you the same amount of time to sell the same amount of items regardless. And once we know how much it costs in a given run, We then have to find out how much you can make in a larger span of time, and everyone's favorite is the hour. So, as you'll see, there is a pretty big difference between these for a variety of reasons, but one of the biggest is basically reset time, meaning how long it takes you to go back to the inventory to repurchase things, and the ones with a lower profit margin, such as the med store run, are not going to make nearly as much money in the long run because you're not getting as much per run, even though it is a little bit faster. Also, remember these times are variable and they're going to change depending on who's playing or what console or whatever, because a lot of my runs in the Lizzies ended up being somewhere between 45 and 50 seconds once I got really good at it, but I figured 60 was a good average. Also, if your load times are much higher, you might be able to get through the Sasquatch Bounty, which is the other option we talked about a minute ago, in even less than 50 seconds. But as you can see, in terms of the methods that are available to you from the start of the game to the finish, purchasing alcohol and reselling the components from Lizzie's is the fastest for making money at 416k per hour and possibly even a little bit faster. So now we're just going to go over a few smaller tips that are going to help you along. And one of the biggest ones I have is, of course, you need to get the ability right here, mechanic, so that you can actually get more components when you're disassembling. That's how you get enough to make this actually profitable, because otherwise it probably isn't. And I have seen a lot of people suggest getting this passive right here, and I would say that that is absolutely not worth it. Because if you actually sit down and read this carefully, after you get 3 points in it, you get a 15% chance to gain 1 free component of the item quality. And seeing as what we're doing here is disassembling white items, that means that you're going to be beating common components 15 out of every 100 times. So what that means is after 100 items, rather than deconning those items for crafting components worth 5,400 eddies, you're going to be deconning them for crafting components worth 5,475 eddies for 3 perk points, which is definitely not going to be a big benefit to you, so I would certainly suggest holding off on this one. Hopefully they'll have some sort of a buff to that at some point later on. Also, while we're on the topic, I would highly suggest not also getting the scrapper perk like I made the mistake of doing, because very frequently you're going to come across items that are worth 750 eddies apiece, and then they're going to immediately be scrapped the moment you pick them up. Also, another method you can use is through crafting. So if you're looking for a more sitting on the couch watching TV on the other input setting kind of method, then this is probably going to be your way to go. Keep in mind though, that this does require you to actually get a little bit more experience and leveling, because you need perks in order to craft purple items. You need Grease Monkey up here, which requires 12 in your technical ability skill. But once you have that, you can craft certain items, such as this max stock here, which will still give you a little bit of a profit. What is even more advantageous though, if you can find it, is the recipe for this grenade, which just so happens to be the only grenade you can decon in the game. But it only costs you 1 common and 1 uncommon component to make it, and you can decon it for just as much as you can decon the purple medicine for. And the components from that purple medicine sell for 240 eddies each. So every craft you do with that, you're making 240 eddies. But again, this is a little bit slower, and you have to manually do the crafting. Plus, you do also have to get lucky enough to actually find the schematic. One final tip before I go is that instead of selling all of your components to a drop point, you can actually just keep them on you since they weigh nothing, and as you go from shop to shop purchasing things, go ahead and fill in the amount of whatever you purchased after you've bought it with selling those components. And every shop has between 10 and 30,000, with the exception of the smaller shops like the food shops and bars. Now keep in mind that you're still going to have at least a good bit of on-hand cash in case you want to buy cars or get upgrades from a Ripper Dock. But hopefully this bug won't be patched super soon, because this is a single player game and I think that kind of gives us the right to play it how we'd like. But maybe that's just the entitled hipster in me speaking. Anyways, thanks a lot for those of you that did watch through the whole video. I hope you learned a lot, and if you want to see more videos like this, then subscribe. If you have any questions about anything that I said, let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you very much for watching.